Good day, everyone. You are welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be exploring another aspect of adjective called comparison of adjective. Comparison of adjective. Let's talk about gradable versus non-gradable adjectives. What do we mean? Gradable adjectives can be made weaker or stronger by adverbs, whereas non-gradable adjectives describe absolute qualities that cannot usually be graded. For proper context, remember that we say adjective describes a noun or pronoun, tends to give us the picture of what we are talking about. But we have some adjectives that we can grade them. They can be made weaker or stronger. The level of how that thing is, how that description is. But we have some adjectives that are absolute. They are called non-gradable. They are just, if something is this, it is this. There's no grading to it. Gradable adjectives can be modified by adverbs to make the adjective's original meaning either more powerful or less powerful. For example, this book is very good. This book is fairly good. This book is not very good. Now, look at these three examples. The adjective is good, but we cannot compare the first sentence to the third sentence. Adverbs change the strength of that good. How good is the what? Is the book? Is it very good? Fairly good, that's averagely. Not good, that's the lowest form. Things can be more or less good, so good is a gradable adjective. Further examples. Edmund is extremely talented. Edmund is reasonably talented. Edmund is not particularly talented. You can see adjective talented, but we cannot compare example 1 to the third or to even the second one. So that one is stronger, extremely talented. That's good. Not particularly talented. You can say not talented at all. This soup is really tasty. This soup is pretty tasty. This soup is not very tasty at all. I believe when we get to adverbs, we are going to talk more about this under adverbs of degree. Non-gradable adjectives. Non-gradable adjectives cannot usually be modified. These adjectives tend to fall under three categories: extreme, absolute, and classifying. Non-gradable adjectives like fantastic are her arguments were fantastic. We cannot say her arguments were very fantastic. Her arguments were not very no. It's either it is fantastic or not fantastic. Let's look at extreme adjectives. Extreme adjectives are stronger version of gradable adjectives such as awful, hilarious, fantastic, or terrifying. Let's say that hilarious. If you say funny, funny is a gradable adjective. For instance, you can say her story is very funny. But instead of using very funny, you can say her story is hilarious. So when you say her story is hilarious, it's the same thing as saying very hilarious. So it is wrong to say her story is very hilarious. I do hope you understand it. Her presentation was awful. So the idea of extremely is in the middle of that awful already. Is synonymous to saying our presentation was very bad. Was very bad. And this thing comes up under words we can use instead of using very sometimes. There are some words you can use instead of saying very, very beautiful, very dirty. There are single words, and that single words are already in the extreme range of what is already in the extreme spectrum of that description. Absolute adjective cannot be graded because they describe fixed qualities or states. Something like unique, perfect, impossible. If something is perfect, it's perfect. It cannot be very perfect. You cannot be more perfect. Do you understand that kind of thing? I say, oh, the presentation is perfect. It's absolute. Do you understand? Then classifying adjectives. Classifying adjectives are used to say something of a specific type or class, such as American, nuclear, or medical. The audience was American. You cannot say the audience was very American. No. So these are what? These are non-gradable adjectives. Further example, is boiling in here. Can we open a window? I'm terrified of spiders and snakes. I am certain that he is the right person for the job. Let's go for a walk. The weather outside is perfect. These are non-gradable adjectives. Let's talk about comparative adjectives. Comparative adjectives are used to compare two things. They can either be formed by adding suffix er or putting more or less before the adjectives. When we are actually talking about comparison of adjective, that's when we have the positive, comparative, and superlative. So we are talking about the comparative. Comparative adjectives. For most adjectives with one or two syllables rather, er is added to make the comparative. For instance, Ahmed is tall. Then you say Ahmed is taller than Jonathan. So you add the er, then you introduce that than to introduce the thing that the subject is what is being compared to. Jean is stronger than Carlos. Anna is older than Sharon. A plane is faster than a train. Sanjay is younger than Tina. My friends are quicker than me. Now, common mistakes that we make with the use of than is this. Some people tend to confuse than with then. No. Than and then can easily be confused because they sound similar, but it's not the same. Ahmed is taller than Jonathan, not Ahmed is taller than Jonathan. No, no, no. Now, how do we form comparatives? There are different rules for forming comparative. Like we said, you can add er. You can add er if the adjective ends with e. Just add the r. Closer, larger, etc. If it ends with y, you remove the y and add ier. Earlier, tidier. If it ends with consonants, if for a single syllable consonant ending or vowel ending, for single syllable adjectives ending consonant, vowel, consonant, the final letter is doubled and then you add er. Elephant is larger than a rhino. My bedroom is tidier than my sister's. Spain is hotter than England. These are further examples. The one that end with E, you just add R. Closer, large to larger, late to later, safe to safer, nice to nicer. The ones that ends with Y, that you just have to remove the Y and add IER, tidier, happier, easier, busier, luckier. And the ones that ends with consonants, bigger, hotter, thinner, fatter, sadder. Okay, what about when we have irregular comparatives? Irregular comparatives, some of them are irregular. For instance, good is better. The comparative of good is better. The comparative of bad is worse. The comparative of far is farther for US English and further for UK English. In US English, further and furthest are used to describe figurative distances and not necessarily physical distances. Other examples, the house is farther away than the tree. Jill got a better grade than John. London has worse weather than Paris. More can be replaced by less to give the opposite meaning. For example, the beach is less beautiful than that one. So, as you want it. Further examples. Spiders are more frightening than wasps. The book is more interesting than that one. The dress is more glamorous than I expected. For me, history is less difficult than science. Walking is less tiring than running. My job is less exciting than I hoped. Now, how do we also form two-form comparatives? Some two-syllable comparative have two possible comparative forms. Either the comparative ending can be added, maybe er, ier, or more can be added. For example, my cat is friendlier than my dog. That is correct. You can also say, my cat is more friendly than my dog. The garage is narrower than the car, or the garage is more narrow than the car. This puzzle is simpler than that one, or this puzzle is more simple than that one. You don't say this puzzle is more simpler. No. This party is livelier than yours, or this party is more lively than yours. Remember, the moment you use that more, you are already comparing. So the real adjective does not have to change. The lake is shallower than the sea. The lake is more shallow than the sea. You don't say the lake is more shallower than the sea. The parrot is quieter than yours. My parrot is more quiet than yours. The driver is angrier than the cyclist, or the driver is more angry than the cyclist. The common mistakes people make is when forming comparative, it is incorrect to add more before the adjective if it already has the word comparative ending. That's what I was saying. He's more friendly than her. Friendly, not more friendlier. But immediately you use friendlier, you don't need more. He's friendlier than her. So take note. So friendlier and more friendly are correct, but more friendlier is not correct. Let's talk about adjectives with modifiers. Modifiers can go before comparatives to make comparison stronger or weaker. The tree is a lot, that's a modifier, taller, that's comparative, than the building. These modifiers mean there's a big difference between the things you are comparing. The tree is a lot taller than the building. The tree is much taller than the building. Just saying the tree is taller than the building. Remember when we are talking about adjective, we are just talking about you painting a mental picture, you describing vividly that noun that you are talking about. So when you say the tree is taller than the building and you say the tree is much taller than the building, I am very sure the mental picture you are going to have for the two will definitely be different. The tree is a bit taller than the building. The tree is slightly taller than the building. These modifiers mean there is only a small difference between the things you are comparing, but the one above is saying there's a big difference. That is, if the building is 6 feet, probably the tree is like 10 feet, much taller. But if you say the tree is a bit or slightly taller, maybe you are saying ratio of 5 feet to 7 feet. You say the palace is much more beautiful than the factory, or the palace is far more beautiful than the factory. With long comparative, the modifier goes before more. Take note, it goes before more. It goes before more. Remember, this one is long comparative. Comparative of adjective that is more than 2 syllables. So forming the long the long comparative by putting more before the adjective like we have always been doing. Let's look at further examples. The mountain is much taller than the hill. The castle is slightly bigger than the hotel. The house is a bit taller than the statue. The dress is a lot more expensive than the shoes. Take note that the modifiers always come before the word, before the comparative adjective. Common mistakes that we use when we are using very is this. It is incorrect to modify comparative with very. No. The tree is much taller than the building is correct, but you do not say the tree is very taller than the building. Please take note of that. Let us talk about two comparative together. Two comparatives can be used together in a sentence to show the effect of an action. They are also used to show that something is changing. And it can also even used to show comparatives showing cause and effect. Pairing two phrases that use comparative adjective is a way of making comparison that show cause and effect. For instance, the harder I train, the stronger I get. It implies that your training results in you getting what? Stronger. Further example, the worse the children behave, the angrier the teacher gets. The louder the cat mews, the louder the dog barks. Take note of the agreement. Harder, stronger. Worse, angrier. Louder, louder. So take note of that. How do we form it? The harder, the comparative adjective, your subject and your verb, comma, then the second, that's the article, then the other word, comparative adjective. I think this thing is what is also used in a Bible verse that says, the path of the righteous is as a shining light that shines brighter and brighter. Do you understand? Brighter and not brighter and brightest. Brighter and brighter until the perfect day. Shortening comparative phrases. Remember, we are doing this grammar in order for us to write and speak effectively. Double comparatives that end with better are often shortened where the context makes the meaning obvious to the listener. How do you like your tea? The stronger, the better. You don't say the stronger the tea is, the better it tastes. Not necessarily. To avoid wordiness. It's already what? It's already implied. When you say the stronger the better, because based on the question that what the person asks as regards the tea, we already know that you're talking about the tea. The more the merrier is a phrase that means when people are at an event, the better it will be. Yes, I believe you've heard that phrase before, the more the merrier. What it means is that when many people are in an event, the more people are in an event, the better it will be. And it's good. If you and your friend, just one person meet up, compared to maybe 5 of you meet up, it tends to be more interesting. Can I bring my brother along? Sure. The more, the merrier. The expression means people are welcome. So it means the more people come, the merrier the party will be. But in order to avoid wordiness, you just say the more, the merrier. Further examples. What time do we need to leave? The sooner, the better. Not necessarily saying the sooner we leave, the better. Do we need to take a big suitcase? Yes, the bigger, the better. You don't necessarily have to say the bigger the suitcase, the better the traveling. No, you can shorten it. Comparatives showing change. A comparative can be repeated to show that something is changing. This expression emphasizes the change and is often used to describe extremes. The weather is getting colder and colder. The repetition emphasizes that the change is continuing and shows that it is a repeated comparative. I think is the synonymous. This is a perfect example of the one in the Bible. The path of the righteous is as a shining light that shines brighter and brighter. That is change. The tree outside my house is growing taller and taller. Repeated comparatives. The car went faster and faster down the road than the hill. Long comparative that is showing change. How do we form it? You just use more to express it. Houses are getting more and more expensive. So it is the more that is repeated, but you are going to just use the adjective once. You do not necessarily have to say houses are getting more expensive and more expensive. No, that sounds too wordy. Houses are getting more and more expensive. His music is getting more and more annoying. My job has become more and more stressful. The next thing we are talking about is how do we use as for comparison? Comparison using as and as construction can be used to discuss degrees of similarity and difference. They can be modified with adverbs to make them stronger or weaker. Now, let's talk about it to compare something that are similar. Lisa is as tall as Mark. The adjective is in its normal form. That's the positive form. That is, they are of the same what? The same height. Penny is not as Penny is not as tall as Mark. Not already denote that it is negative. Do you understand? So, we are talking about negative comparison here. And further example will be, will today be as hot as yesterday? Your desk is as messy as mine. Comparison. The same comparison, right? Similarity or the difference. But this one is similarity. The bus is not so crowded as the train. It's talking about comparing the difference. Jenny is not as busy as Will. We can also use as and as comparison with modifiers to make them more detailed, just like we've expressed above. Bottled water is just as expensive as coffee. That just is emphasizing equality. That is, there's no difference in the price. The girls were almost as loud as the boys. This time around, we are comparing similarity. The movie is not quite as good as the book. This has a very similar meaning to almost as, but contrast the difference rather than comparing. This one is talking about contrast, not quite as good as the book. The bike is half as long as the car. The mouse is nowhere near as big as the bird, emphasizing the difference. Let's look at further examples. Sita is almost as frightened as Justin. I think fruit is just as delicious as cake. The door is half as wide as the window. George is almost as tired as Hetty. Seth is nowhere near as old as Mabel. The skyscraper is not quite as tall as the mountain. I do hope you got value from this lesson. If you did, don't forget to like this video. Drop a comment or any question that you have. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel to enjoy more lessons. Thank you and see you next time.